Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. Now, the other day I was on a flight coming back from Salt Lake City to Detroit, and since I'm an introvert and don't really want to talk to anybody on a flight, I just sat there and thought to myself, what are some of the challenges I had when I was starting out in real estate? And after 25 minutes, actually not that very long, probably way less than 25 minutes of thinking, I came up with underwriting. That was the problem that I had. Except it wasn't actually that underwriting was the issue that I had, it was the confidence in the underwriting that I was doing. The reason I didn't have any confidence was that I didn't have somebody showing me what the heck I should be doing, right? And as much as I like watching YouTube videos, I still didn't feel comfortable with it. So, in order to address this and hopefully help somebody else out to make sure that they have the confidence to do it, I'm going to go over 3 different types of underwriting in this video. Really, I'm going to go over 2, and then I'm going to address what the third one is, but we're not going to get into it because it's not really necessary. It's not necessary at this level, it's not necessary at this point, and you're not missing out by doing it. If you get to that level, it will only confuse you. So, focus on these first 2, and let's rock and roll. So, the first type of underwriting that we're going to talk about is very simple. It's called back of the napkin, okay? You've probably heard about it before, and you probably are thinking, if you're like me, at least, you're like, whoa, Steven, this is too simple. Can't be this simple. Cannot be this simple. I'm going to screw something up. And to that I would say, chill out. You're just fine, and actually this is a very good way to initially start underwriting any type of property, even the large ones that I do today. So, how does the back of the napkin underwriting work? Works like this. Let's pop on the paper. Okay, so this is how back of the napkin underwriting works. So, let's say that we have a 10-unit property, okay? And we know that rents are equal to $500 per month. Cool? We're all good. So what does this mean? This means if we take $500, multiply it by 10, we get $5,000. Pretty simple. Boom. This is our top line revenue, $5,000 per month. That's what we're going to get. Cool. So now what do we got to do? We need to subtract out our operating expenses. Operating expenses are things for your insurance, your taxes, property taxes, your maintenance, your property management, stuff like that. So, the quickest way to do this, and the way that we're going to do this, is simply multiply our 5,000 by 50%. Why? What is this 50%? This 50% represents the amount of this revenue that's going to go to covering the operating expenses. Seems like a lot. You're going to be probably pretty good at 50% unless you're buying really, really rough property. Okay, so what does this leave us with? After we do all this multiplication, this leaves us with $2,500. Okay, what is this? This is called the NOI, net operating income. This is what's left after we pay all the expenses, after we take our top line, all that type of stuff. What do we do with this figure? This figure right here needs to cover our debt. So, how do we know if it's a good investment or not? Well, pretty simple at this point. If our debt is $3,000, that's a problem. Why? Because if our debt is $3,000, that means when we subtract $2,500 from $3,000, we get negative $500. That means we're losing $500 per month every single month. That's not a good thing. Okay, so what if we change it? What if it's different? What if instead of $3,000, it's $1,500? $1,500. Well, that means we're gonna, instead of losing $500 a month, we're gonna make $1,000 a month. In which case, we're gonna make $12,000 in a year. If all this holds up and is true. In that case, it's a good investment. Okay, I would do that. Probably, depending on how much money I have to put down. But generally, it's a good investment. Now, if you're like me, you're like, okay, this little math here Seems too simple. And or this seems like bullshit. How do I know it's a good investment? First of all, your investment should always make money. If the property is not making you money from day one or relatively soon from day one, especially when you're starting out, that's not a good sign. When you're starting out, that's not a good sign. Why? Because cash flow provides holding power. Meaning, yeah, you might not be doing super well, but as long as the property is paying for the debt and paying for the maintenance and paying for the property management and paying for all that stuff, you can still hold on to the property. You can ride through the bad times. If the property is losing $500 a month, there's only so long you're going to want to hold on to that. And you can scale the number either way. It could be $500, it could be $5,000, it could be $50,000, right? If you're losing $50,000 a month, you're probably not going to be happy, and I don't know what you're doing with an investment because that's not a very good one, okay? So, how do you determine the return that you want? Okay, you just take this $1,000, this number, right, the $1,000, if we're going with the $1,500 example, and you multiply it by 12 to get it what it would be over a year, and you divide it by what the down payment is that you put. So if you put $100,000 down and you're making $12,000 a year after you pay your debt and maintenance and all that type of stuff, then you're getting a 12% return. Pretty good return. You should probably take that. That's a very good return. It's like a very good return. Okay? So that's example number one. That's called back of the napkin. Now, if we want to get a little bit more sophisticated, we'll move on to example number two. Okay, so if you want to get a little bit more sophisticated, example two is where we're going to go and call it, I don't know, the line item underwriting. So line item underwriting is where you're getting more detailed or granular on what the actual expenses are. No longer are we just saying, yeah, 50% is going to go to expenses. What actually are those expenses? We're going to highlight them. But we're going to do it from a relatively high level view. We don't need to get into too many details. This is going to be more than sufficient if we're doing smaller properties that are 1 to maybe 10 units, heck, even maybe 20 units. You're probably going to be okay doing this. So let's get into it and let's see how it would work with this approach. Okay, so let's take the same example that we did in example number one and go to example number two. Let's still have a 10 unit property. I switched markers, by the way, because it's a little bit cleaner. We're still making $500 per month per unit. So our revenue is still going to be $5,000 per month. That's our top line. But instead of saying 50%, what we're going to actually do is get into line items. What's some of the first line items that we need to know? Taxes. Okay, what else? Maintenance. What else? Insurance. What else? Property management. What else? That's probably pretty close to everything you need to know. So, how do we figure out our maintenance? Well, our maintenance can be something as simple as 10% of this top line number. So that'd be $500 per month. What about insurance? Insurance, you're going to need to know. You're going to have to get some quotes or generally have a decent idea of that. But it's going to be a couple percentages or a couple percentage points worth of the purchase price of the property. So say it's 3%. So it's $3,000 per every 100,000 that you buy. That's maybe a little bit aggressive. Maybe it's 2.5. Depends on the property. Depends on if it's student housing, non-student housing, etc., etc., etc. But you can figure out this number. Property taxes. Go look back at what the county auditor's site says, and then it's going to go up. Taxes, big important point. Property taxes go up when you buy the property. If you buy it, for more typically. So make sure you take that into account. Management's 10%. Okay, that's an easy number to figure in there. So say that's another $500. Okay, so you might be saying, Steven, this management thing, I'm going to self-manage it. So this 10% doesn't apply to me. Don't be stupid. Do not do that. Why do not do that? Do you like to work for free? That's my question. Do you like to work for free? No, but there's no buts, okay? Factor this in, okay? Always factor that in, get paid to work. That's a big rule. Okay, so we know we have $500 for maintenance, we have $500 for management. Let's say that our taxes on this property are $1,000. Maybe that's a little expensive. And then our insurance on this property is going to be $300 per month. Okay, so let's add all these numbers up, and that's our expenses. So we have 1,000 plus 500 is 15, plus another 300 is 1,800, plus another 500 is $2,200. So $2,200 is our expenses. Right? 22, or is it 23? Should be $2,300. My bad. $2,300 is our expenses. So if we subtract our 5,000 from 2,300, what's that leave us with? That leaves us with $2,700. Yeah, $2,700. This is our NOI, or projected NOI. Okay, so we know we have $2,700 to cover our debt. That's the only difference. So we get a little bit more granular. So in the last time, when we did the 50% rule, we had $2,500 was our NOI, and in this case, $2,700 is our NOI. So you can be a little bit more precise as long as these numbers are correct. If these numbers aren't correct, or you're getting too aggressive on these numbers, well, that doesn't really matter, and you might still buy a bad property, or you might overpay for a property, I should say. It could be a good property, but you can overpay for something, right? The price you pay is very important. So that's the only difference between this next line item getting more granular and what we did before. This stuff works. I bought property using literally this method before, made money. I still own the property today and made tons of money on it. So use that as an indication that, as long as you understand all these pieces here, this type of approach can actually work, and does work. Okay, you don't have to get overly sophisticated. You don't really have to take this into an Excel sheet or any fancy thing like that. No fancy calculator, no nothing. This works just fine. Okay, time for number 3, which I'm just going to talk about from a high level. I'm not really going to get into all the details here, but number 3 is when we would actually have to jump into an Excel worksheet. And why is that? Because not only are we doing stuff like what we did in the last one where we go through line items, but we're actually going to go put together what's called a pro forma. And a pro forma is just a projection of the performance over time, performance of the asset over time. So we're going to have a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 year, 6 year, whatever, so on and so forth, projection of what's going to happen to the revenue, what's going to happen. So our rent's going to go up, what's going to happen to our expenses, how much are they going to go up, how much are they going to change, is there going to be a big CapEx thing, maybe we'll put in a refinance at some point in time to see how money's coming back out, if we can increase the value of the property enough. Maybe we're taking on a more sophisticated property, maybe we're taking on a 60 unit or 100 unit property, and we need to know what a ratio utility billing system would do. So if we were going to bill back our expenses to utility expenses to the tenants, how would that impact our performance? That was stuff that I thought I needed to know getting out of the gate, when I was first starting. And so when I was doing stuff like this, I felt like I wasn't doing it well enough. I felt like I was missing something. But in actuality, you could honestly buy some pretty large properties using that. And you should try to keep things as simple as possible at all times. The more you add these layers of complexity, the more you're going to struggle with things. I hope this video provided some value to you. I hope it helped. If it did, give me a like, a share, a subscribe, something like that. That encourages me to make these videos. If you see something that I can improve on in making these videos, dude, let me know. I appreciate it. So, I'll see you in the next one.